In my previous video called Made with Scrap Glass, I made the base of this orca Seascape using powder migration. This video runs through how I made the design elements, which are a combination of modelling glass and standard fused glass. There is a bonus feature at the end looking at the importance of annealing correctly and considerations that must be made when dealing with a piece with varying thicknesses of glass. I use Bullseye glass throughout this video, but other COE glass works just as well. The fused glass elements were made on a pizza stone, which I use as a portable kiln shelf covered with papyrus kiln paper. I pulled out scrap pieces of glass in various colours. The fun part about underwater scenes is that anything goes colour-wise. Stringers and medium frit were used to make coral also. Just experiment with what you have available. For some bright orange coral, thin strips of 2mm glass were cut and layered in an irregular design to create organic forms. The same process was followed using other colours of 3mm glass also. More coral possibilities were made with small piles of medium frit, topped with contrasting colour stringers. I continued playing, and this is more or less how it went into the kiln for a full fuse. I must confess I did carry on tweaking a little bit after this. And here are the results after the full fuse. For the killer whale, I made a 4-ounce batch of modelling glass in transparent powder and added 1 teaspoon of white dove enamel. Dove enamel is known as rogue enamels in some countries. My intention was to paint it white after drying also. This video shows me making a yellow batch of modelling glass. Be sure to follow the instructions. I will also include a link of the modelling glass website in my description. I made a rough sketch of the underside of a killer whale with the intention of using this as a template. I was on holiday when I made this part of the video, so I had to improvise with an aerosol tin as a roller. My preferred choice of mat to work on would be a silicone mat. I rolled the modelling glass clay to approximately 3mm thick with cling film on the top to prevent sticking. I then traced the whale onto the clay using a pen to make an indentation, which was used as a cutting guide. I used a bog standard kitchen knife to cut around the whale. The edges were tidied up and a few bits of clay added to some areas which looked a little bit thin. A more accurate way to roll out the modelling clay to an even 3mm thickness is to roll it out between 2 3mm strips of glass with a rolling pin. I made various different fishy elements using a fondant mould. If you're having trouble getting the clay out of the mould, sometimes it's a good idea to let it dry in the mould. I also made some shells and starfish. I experimented with some freeform elements, with the white coral being the most successful and realistic looking. When the whale had air dried, I proceeded to sand the edges with a nail file. I also filed some rough bits on the top of the whale. Go very careful, it's very fragile at this point. Brush off any loose dust with a paintbrush. It can be a bit tricky to get a bright white colour with modelling glass, so I decided to paint the whale with white dove enamels. Be careful when adding enamels, as the piece can get soft and damp again. I air dried the clay in the kiln room, but it could also be dried in the oven or the kiln at 200 degrees Fahrenheit or 90 degrees centigrade. Pieces can stay on the silicone mat for this purpose. When the white enamel was dry, the outline for the black markings were drawn with a pencil. Then black liquid enamel in a vape bottle was piped onto the well, like flooding icing on a cookie. Care was taken to also paint the sides. Other compatible enamels can also be used for this. The black enamel was dried, and then when the piece was completely dry, it had a tack fuse in the kiln. The clownfish made from modelling glass with orange powder were dried and white enamel stripes painted on them. The black stripes were painted with a vape bottle the same as the well. After drying the enamel, these also went in the kiln for a tack fuse to eliminate shrinkage. A selection of pre-fired modelling glass elements and standard fuse glass elements were laid on the powder migration base. Coarse green frit was added and some little shells and starfish. Bittergraph stringers were added for a seaweed effect. And finally, a sprinkling of green confetti glass. I did go back after this and add some orange frit as well. Then one final firing, which was a tack fuse. And this is the final result. A cheerful underwater scene. Overall, I'm very pleased with the result. Some of the modelling glass has lost a bit of definition, but I'm really pleased with how the clownfish turned out. I don't think I needed to paint the whale in white enamel, as after the second tack fuse it would have gone white. The white coral was not painted with enamel and was made from the same batch of modelling glass. I think I will keep this for myself and display it in a plate stand. This would also look great wall mounted or slumped carefully into a bowl mould. Now I thought this was going to be the end of this video, but no, I had a bit of a disaster. This breakage happened while I was taking photographs. There must have been a weakness in the glass. In retrospect, I know what went wrong. It had to do with annealing. All those different thicknesses of glass, I should have been much more prudent bringing the temperature back down. I think the thick green piece of seaweed caused the problem. The glass in that spot was probably near to 9mm in total. So I'm going to try and repair it, putting confetti glass and clear glass pebbles over the crack. Then it will be fired again using a sensible tack fuse schedule. Bullseye Glass and Warm Glass UK websites have great articles about annealing thick slabs. I will include the links in the description. It's hard to see, but I used clear confetti glass to cover up some of the cracks. I also added some clear pebbles on the cracks and on other parts just to balance it out a bit. And finally some green confetti glass. It's hard to see the break here, but this is actually before it goes into the kiln for a sensible tack fuse. Hopefully this is the last visit to the kiln. So here we are after the tack fuse schedule suggested for an 18mm thickness slab. To be honest, I'm a little bit disappointed as some of the definition has been lost. It looks like it's gone through a contour fuse rather than a tack fuse, but the crack has healed, which is one good thing. The clownfish especially have flattened out and don't look as realistic. It could be tidied up with some enamel work, but I don't want to risk firing it again. But glass fusing is all about experimenting and learning. There are so many variables. For instance, my small kiln, which is a Scut Firebox 14, tends to fire a little on the hot side, so I could have reduced the top temperature down a bit. I could also have tried a test piece, but only making a test piece at this size could I repeat the conditions. So this will be my test piece, and I will have to make another one in the future. I hope you enjoyed this video and the realistic portrayal of a not quite perfect result. Hopefully it will prevent you from making the same mistake and check firing schedules better than I did. If you would like to see more from me, please like, subscribe and hit the notification bell to be alerted of new videos. My next project is likely to be some Christmas glass, so please check in soon. Thank you, bye bye.